Today's conversation is about leadership under pressure. It's about confidence when the system wasn't built for you. It's about what changes when women stop carrying communication alone. My guest is Kirsten Dubreuil, a former senior military officer turned executive leadership coach who now works with both women and men to change the way power, communication, and leadership really work. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to Rooted in Your Confidence. I am Samantha Kaye Harris, and I am the Brag Rag Strategist. And hello, Kirsten. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for the introduction and creating this space, Samantha. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Yeah.
A little bit more about me that I grew up as a military base brat and then naturally just joined the military, not really appreciating what kind of environment that would be for working in, and not necessarily seeing, even throughout my career, that weren't a lot of women around. I mean, I saw it, but I didn't really appreciate what that felt like, I guess, because it was just like, this is just what is normal, and you just went with it until I was a commanding officer and I was really at the table with men and really seeing what a difference that was in how I was being perceived and maybe, how I was showing up myself. And then at that same time, I got to work with my own executive coach, and it was incredibly powerful for me as a leader and for me as a human being. And then it just naturally progressed into me realizing like being a coach is just a perfect platform to be able to help people find the fire in their belly and find their passion and really support women that were facing the same challenges as me. So that's what brought me to where I am today.
Wow. I love that fire in your belly. You don't often hear it, but when you
Mm,
said it, it just ignited something in me because I don't think women do that enough. Tap into that
mm,
fire in their belly, that thing that gets them motivated, going, that makes them the dreams that they want seem
yeah.
like they're real. They kind of suppress it like, oh no, what's going to happen? So for you to have that, it's a wonderful thing. So
Mm.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that I didn't always have it. I mean, I went through my career a lot on autopilot and played small because that is kind of like what society tells us to do. So being in this space now and realizing that myself really allows me to ensure that other women don't feel like they have to play small to be successful and to find alignment and find the fire in their belly.
Yeah. What does playing small look like for you? I know what it looked like for me coming up
Yeah.
and things like that. So I was wondering, what did it look like for you playing it small?
Yeah. It was a lot of, sitting at the table. That's interesting. That this is not how I see this situation at all, but not always wanting to share my point of view or what I think the solution should be to the problem, because it was often very different than what the other ideas were at the table. And so it was a lot of questioning and wondering, like, is this the like share my diverse opinions and views? And really just, like I said, being on autopilot and accepting when someone said, okay, this is the next role you'll do, or that you don't have the background to do this role. I went, okay, and never questioned it versus going, hey, but wait a minute, I've done this, and this. So how is this not equaling to, having the background to be successful in this role? Yeah. So that's a cool version of what playing it small like for me over 25-year career.
Yeah, I get it completely. Like you, I think I follow the norms and the traditions of life and how I
Mm,
saw it happening in front of me. So I kind of like, this is the norm. Even though being a leader, we showed up and we did certain things to make people recognize us and see us and say,
mm,
wow, they're kick ass. They're amazing humans. So let's see, hear their opinion. I think we forgot that that's why we ended up in the positions of leadership that we were, but because the way the traditions and norms kind of took over us, it was like, okay, I'm supposed to sit here, not even realizing we were just falling into what we agreed to without knowing we were agreeing to it. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
I was like, oh my God, once you start working and once you start getting to know yourself, you realize like, I didn't even realize that I was doing it because of what I saw, what was presented in front of me. And that's just what I normalized. Anything outside of that, I felt like I was doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I relate to that a lot, Samantha, because I would say like what one of the terms I was using just this week was talking about like here's your menu of options. These are the things that are accepted. So choose between this list and that's it, that's all kind of thing. And if you don't find something that resonates with you, you need to find something that, aligns the most versus really wanting to do what feels right and natural for you as a leader.
Yeah. And I'm just because I'm curious. I'm not, you were a leader, you were in leadership roles, you were in the military. What did
Yeah.
you do to get there? How did they see you that they were like,
Mm.
yes, Kirsten, let's pick her, let's put her. What did she do?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I would say that I've always just done what was asked of me. I don't necessarily know that I did anything different, but what I would say is that before I even knew what the term was, I was a servant leader. I was focused on what my team needed, finding the tools for them, really understanding who they were as individuals. Because one of the things, so I was an officer, my dad was a non-commissioned member. And I remember when I joined, him telling me, just because you're the officer and you're the boss doesn't mean that you know all the things and that you have the answer. Really reach out to the people that have been around and they know the things and have some humility and lean on them. And so that's really the approach that I took. And I really believe that that was what created success for me because I'm also a believer of like if your team is happy and they have the tools to do their job, I mean your job is easy because the work's going to get done and it's going to get done well.
Wow, I like that because being part of a team allowed you to not just see yourself. Do you think a lot of people don't
Mm,
lead that way? They look at themselves first, or they look at the group?
that's a loaded question. So I mean, yes. I mean, I think yeah, there are a lot of leaders that are looking out for themselves and looking out for, their next step. Or, rather than being in the moment and really thinking like, what do I need to do to be really good at this job right now? They're looking at like the next steps and the next steps and who do I need to please and who do I need to network with and have conversations with and what's going to be this big like feather in my cap to show that I can do the things versus really being focused on the job that you're doing right now. But again, for me, it's the people in the team really making sure that they understand the mission and that they feel supported. Because I've worked for many leaders that's not the focus. The focus is really what am I going to do to make sure that I'm getting to the next. And people see through that really quickly.
Yeah, I believe that they do. I think people see the mask because the way I very rarely have I noticed that people walk in them true selves. They walk in as the representative of themselves, of who they think that the room wants to meet.
Yeah.
I think that it's automatically it was ingrained in me being a woman walking into so many that were in so many rooms, excuse me, that it was just men, so I
Hmm.
became who I thought the room needed to see for me to be accepted, for me to become a better leader, and that they would allow me to be a better leader. Let me say it the truth, being the truthful
Hmm.
with myself, because having these opportunities had to be strategic. Because I was a woman and only black woman. So being able to walk in the room and have that representative of myself, which was actually
Hmm.
me, appeal to who they thought was a leader and how they showed up. That's why I asked that question because I know it's a difference in leadership, the way we lead men and women. So I was wondering,
Yeah.
I know for me, getting in the door and then revamping and showing up different and being a different type of leader than what I was seeing and what I had to display for people to say, oh, she would be a good human is totally different now.
Yes, yes. And so one of the things I love that you brought that up because one of the things that I keep wondering about, like so in the Canadian Armed Forces, that there is a desire to have more women general officer, flag officers. And so we've made some progress there. But one of the things that I would really love to get into and do some research some way, somehow, is to understand like what traits have these women had to adopt to be successful and to be seen to be able to get in that room? Or have they been able to be themselves? I would suggest most of them no, based on who I've seen and who I've met. But like, what characteristics are they assimilating to be successful? Because I just remember being in a room and being told that unable, I'm not very clear in how I'm briefing a senior officer, and I'm the only woman. And I just thought, am I really not clear? Or is it just that you don't understand my style of communicating? And so it really was like a moment of reflecting, or like the feedback that I was getting. And I was like, this is really interesting because this man is speaking exactly what you're saying that I'm doing, and this man, that seems to be okay. So what am I doing differently that is not being received well?
Yeah. I think that's little research that I've done. It's that we're expected to adapt their style and
Hmm.
become who they assume a woman would look like, speak like, show up as in order to be in these positions. Because if
Yeah.
we are softer or if we are a little more gentler than they would normally be, because to me, men,
Hmm.
they have to be rough with each other because if not, that's unacceptable. You're soft.
Right.
You're not really hard enough to be here. And if we display that, is she really a good leader? Even though you were a team player, even though you were taught that, your father instilled that in you and you
Mm.
showed that, they still question it because it wasn't what they were the norm that they saw. And norms
Yeah.
control society at this point. And
Hmm.
anything outside of it, you're either a disruptor or a problem or
Hmm.
not strong enough or
Yeah.
not, valued enough. It's funny
Hmm.
the way they think. Then they think, because I'm talking about this a lot lately, they say women want to be relevant when we are already more than relevant. And to me, what are you actually saying about,
Yeah.
women in general in positions?
Right. Yeah. When you were speaking, Samantha, it was really reminding me of this situation again. As a commanding officer, I was in a position that I had to communicate some tough news to my entire unit of 400 people. And it was about one of our teammates. And as I'm communicating it, I'm crying and I go, in the moment going like, okay, Kirsten, like you can't be crying in front of 400 people. What are they going to think of you as a leader? Because this is not the characteristics again that are perhaps accepted, welcomed, seen as an authoritative leader. But it didn't take me that long to come to the conclusion of like, this is exactly what they need to see, because this is a tough thing for many of the people to be digesting and really understanding and to really come to terms with, because it was a member of our unit that was significantly injured. It was, an injury that was going to be life changing. So it was, I guess, an inflection point in for the entire unit. And they needed to see that it was affecting me just like it was going to affect many of them, so that they saw like I'm human and it's okay to have these feelings no matter who you are and where you are in the organization. But this is really again what gets me on to the path of where I am right now of like how do we redesign this executive table so that all of those responses are okay, that people aren't having this negative reaction to someone's outward display of emotions, because anger is okay, but to the softer emotions, the more feminine emotions are not okay. And I'm not saying let's all cry all together all the time, but it's okay to show emotions in a work environment. And I think that that needs to be more normalized.
Yeah, I think that, and I don't think that, I know for a fact that normalizing emotions and that the thought, being able to talk about the thoughts that you're having without judgment, but with more
Mm,
understanding instead of saying, this isn't what you're supposed to do, but this is what you're doing. And I may not get it, but I hear you and I see you. It's
mm-hmm.
going to make a better work environments, just make better
Yes.
humans, better relationships. It's going to allow where your direct reports trust you more, where they
Mm-hmm.
believe in you more, especially when you're in high pressure situations, when you, because especially say someone in leadership like myself and you, people already have their beliefs of how we show up. But if we can be vulnerable enough for them to
Mm-hmm.
trust us, because I think it builds trust. I'm not sure if you think it builds
Yeah,
trust.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think people need to see your true self. And I think that's also a lot of what at least was taught to me in leadership is that, like you were saying earlier, this is the outward facing version of me when I step into this room that I need to be, so that you're able to see me in this box and that I align with everything that you're expecting. And I would say halfway through my career, like I always thought that I was really like oversharing and very like easy to read and perhaps, wore my heart on my sleeve. And we don't understand like where you're going, and you're pretty stone faced in meetings, and like it's really hard for us to read you. And I went, oh, so interesting. But I appreciated the courage that they had to tell me that, because they were very, there was lots of ranks between us. And I think about that feedback often because that's not who I wanted to be. I wanted people to feel like we were all on the same page and I was approachable and that they could share things, and not necessarily it be, maybe like a one-way conversation.
Were these men you were leading, or were these more women you were leading that had these thoughts about you?
So this was a woman that shared this with me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is something.
I'm yeah. I mean, on the flip side, I also had a situation that my chief warrant officer at one stage in my career ended, and he had his exit interview with my boss and basically really just said like, I can't work with this young woman because I mean, he was probably old enough to be my dad, and we saw the world very differently, but it was probably like, I thought it was a good balance because he was seeing things this way and I was seeing things this way, and we were able to bring that together. But I just thought it was really interesting that he shared that as he was retiring, and I thought, okay, how many others are there out there? How many other people are in this situation of, this young woman in a leadership role doing things a little bit differently or showing up in this unexpected way that used to? And like, how do you, I won't say recover from that, but like, how do you actually, have some harmony in there so that you both can appreciate the experiences that you're bringing to the table?
Wow. And I think that's the key. That does unlock the door for them, but not for us as
Mm,
women, because we're so busy trying to figure it out, not just for ourselves, but for them too. Where I'm like,
mm,
okay, if I have to, I'm here, I'm in a place where everyone doesn't look like me, doesn't, have the same emotions or feelings. And now I want them to feel comfortable with who I am. How am I managing myself and them, my career? So that's another thing I believe
mm.
we as women put on ourselves, what everyone
Yeah.
else is not just thinking, but how to control it to make sure that we're accepted. And I
Yeah.
used to do, I remember being that person, wanting everyone to get me, see me, so they would understand that I'm here and I see you and I understand why you don't get me, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I just remember thinking again, I was in an environment, the only woman at the table, and I'm with peers, and we were just talking about leadership and what makes a successful leader and what kind of characteristics or approaches are you taking to leadership. And they had basically said that, if you are not eating, breathing, thinking about your work and the priorities 24/7, like you are not a dedicated leader. And so you're telling me that if when I'm at home, I'm present with my family and I want to be with my children and I'm not thinking about what's happening at the office that day or tomorrow, that I'm not a good leader? They said, yes. I went, huh. And so I didn't necessarily know how to respond in that moment because I didn't know. I mean, I knew the people around the table, but I didn't know who was an ally and who wasn't. And, knowing like the military is a small place, that I'm going to have to work with these men again. What is the best response in this situation so that they will respect me? Because I need to have that mutual respect, but also like let's kind of start flipping mindset because that is absolutely not true. And if anything, I'm trying to ensure that my team knows that there's more to life than work. When you're at work, I want you to be fully present and doing your job. But when you're at home, like there's a reason why we're not working 24/7. Like you need that time to recover and connect with people outside of work. So that was another like I guess big moment in my career, and I would say one of what came about in that situation was another man in the room said like that is not right and supported me in that conversation.
That is amazing. That is good to have had someone that you were bold enough, brave enough to bring it up, and then have someone out that's because everyone else to me waits for someone else to stand up and
Hmm.
then they can speak. But for you as a woman and only woman sitting at the table and to say what your feelings were and to have them challenged. And then you had an ally speak up and
Hmm.
said it wasn't right. But that tells you the mind change, the mind shift, the difference between the way women and men think. Because even though they may have families and so on and so forth, they feel that they're supposed to carry the whole load of the job, not be human. Where we are human and have to show up at the job and be the title, be entitled, and then also be able to step out of it and step into another responsibility role that we have with a different title attached to it. And if we don't do that, we're not accepted, but our responsibilities are different. What a friend of mine was saying the other day, she read something or heard something that the unpaid hours that women are, that we do besides having a regular job. And that lets you know that's why society is the way it is now, because no one separates those roles. And we separate the roles and what you're supposed to do. Like men only have to worry about this role and responsibility at a job. And when he goes home, he's not responsible here at the family, or he's not fully present because he thinks this is all he's supposed to do. So how
Hmm.
are we ever aligned when we are peers in a group, when we're peers at
Hmm.
a job, or when we're showing up?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I think, though, that's part of our responsibility, though, as women as well, is to create boundaries and not step into those roles that we're telling ourselves is for us to do and only us to do. Because I would say that, yeah, I've been really grateful to have a partner that is ready to share in that workload at home with kids and house stuff. And it has allowed me to be able to be successful in my career because I was able to know that he had his hand on the wheel to organize suppers, take kids to activities and that kind of thing. And I know not everybody has that. And it was hard for me to even create that space at the beginning because I was always like, well, this is my job. But it wasn't necessarily by design. Again, work took me away for a year for professional development. And so I was coming home on the weekends on the train to see my family. My kids were 2 and 4, I think. So my husband had no choice. Like for 10 months, he was it. So he was the one that had to figure out, schedules and lunches and medical appointments and, all of like kids being sick and coming home and all of that kind of stuff. And it was probably the best thing that could have happened because it forced me to allow that to happen. Okay, this might not be the way I would do things, but it got done and it was perfectly fine, and also allowed him to jump in with confidence to go, I can do this. Like, why wouldn't I be able to do this? And then it's just continued on since then.
Ooh, I love that word allow. How did you feel? How did you come along with, how did you get used to that allowing part? Because I know that takes
Yeah,
courage. You talk about courage a lot and what you
yeah,
do. So how did you muster up the courage to allow?
yeah, yeah. It's a great question. So I think again, it wasn't necessarily by design in the beginning. Like I said, that it was necessity. And like in that year, coming home every weekend, there would be things that I'd be like, oh my gosh, like this isn't how this is supposed to be. But I had to let it go because I said, Kirsten, like you're not the person that's here during the week to keep things on the rails. So you just need to let things go. And it's still been a journey even to now. Because we all have our particularities of this is how we want things done, but it's also been a bit of like a relief to know that I don't have to be the one carrying all the load. And supper could be anything. I don't need to be the person that's designing the supper. My husband's absolutely capable and he does it really well.
That takes so much courage to do that, because especially the way we've been conditioned, and because society tells us and defines a good woman as, like, if we were like you were talking about lists before, you were defining a list of the way the world sees
Yeah.
us, what makes a good wife, what makes a good mother, and then put that side by side with what makes a good person a successful person in your positioning for you to choose not to choose either, but to choose both and allow
Mhm.
yourself to do that. That is like mind blowing. That takes so much
Mhm.
courage and you doing that. And just that allow word is so big, so much bigger than
Mhm.
people really give themselves credit for. So I say kudos to
It's
you
true.
for, even though you're saying it was the job, you had no choice, but you did have a choice. You didn't
It's
have
true.
to do leadership. So like I'm like in awe of your allowing and
Mm.
you were still on your journey to becoming this
Oh yeah.
amazing leadership coach at that time where you had not stepped
Yeah.
into that. You were just on your
Not at all.
journey. So that's
Yeah.
big. That's not small what you did.
Thank
That
you. Thank
is,
you.
when you really think about it, because you had choices. You could have said, nah, I don't want to do that leadership thing. I'm just going to stay here
Mm.
and be small.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
And
It's true.
you were like, mm-mm, we going to figure this out together. you know? And as you as a woman in a male dominated space, misunderstood, that's a big thing too. So
Mm.
even in the times you were misunderstood and you still showed up, that's a win. So you were winning
Mhm.
all the way before you knew you were winning, before you had
It's
put
true.
words to it, you were doing it. So is
Yeah.
that part of what you teach now?
Absolutely. And I would say it's probably been since I've left Samantha that I've really taken stock of like what that foundational 25 years created for me. Because when you're in it, like you're just going through the motions, I would say. Like I wasn't necessarily super intentional. I was just doing what I thought I needed to do to like progress, keep doing like the job that I was in and figure out what the next steps were. So it was really after leaving and reflecting on, or as I was thinking about leaving, like really reflecting on, like, what did this 25 years create for me? And what, how has it set this foundation for who I get to, lean into as an executive coach in this next adventure. So it's pretty exciting, but it has taken a lot of reflecting and like prodding from those that are outside the military for me to realize like, oh, okay, because in my mind, like you're just doing what the organization is asking for you, and everyone around me is doing the same thing. So we're all like marching along, doing our thing, and we're not necessarily questioning it because that's just kind of like the institutional culture. Until I realized like, okay, yeah, that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily operate the way we operate inside this military construct.
Wow, what's the biggest leadership belief you had to unlearn?
Ooh, I think it was really like, because I keep saying that I'm doing a lot of like deprogramming and unlearning right now. And I would say really it's like predetermining the outcome. That in the military, like we have the operational planning process and you are starting with the end state. This is where we are all getting to. And what do we need to do to, be the most effective and efficient and successful to get to this end state? And now I've realized, like, yes, that can be important, but imagine if you didn't always predefine that. And, that the outcome can be like even greater than what you think. And like, don't put yourself in this predefined box because maybe like you're going to fly right past that and just keep going. And that's what I've discovered and realized quite quickly is I kind of had these small, I guess, goals of where I wanted to go in this next chapter. And I need to remember, like, don't predefine the outcome, Kirsten. Just let things go and see what comes.
That's a wonderful thing. And I know it takes courage and time to unlearn anything. So for you to recognize it and step into it and be able to
Mm,
help other women do that also, that is fantastic. And I know, just so the audience knows, we had met before we did this thing right here. And when we were talking, Kirsten was telling me that she wanted to also help men so that the
mm.
conversation can be more open.
We want all of those differences. And I think it's like a conversation that the entire team needs to be a part of to go, yeah, this is why I want to embrace this different idea because it's going to create this solution that is maybe even more fulsome or that we're able to see our blind spots. And even if we continue in the direction that the majority of the table thought, at least we have intentionally done that with our eyes open and not even looked at like all of these other things that could be a possibility for a solution or a challenge along the way as we are moving through that solution.
So for me, I know I like to have women staying at the table and not always
Mm.
building their own table, because again, that doesn't build diversity. It embodies and emboldens not being accepted, and also for women to be excluded. So I know you're saying it takes all of us to be there. How do you believe that we can get everyone to be at the table together?
Yeah, no, I like that because I mean it can't be an us and them. That is not the solution because there's never going to be harmony in that type of solution. So really to me it's being able to build the trust and to be able to have the conversations and understand like where people are coming from and understand where those deep rooted beliefs are coming from so that we can have some conversations about that and be able to have some perhaps common language that would be unique to each team of being able to understand each other and like I said it and really create the trust to create the work environment where they're going to be incredibly successful in all ways. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And no leader is going to be the best version of themselves if they're choosing an attitude or behavior that doesn't align with them. So yes, it's having the courage and being bold in how we show up and having the conversations and not playing it small and challenging others at the table to understand like where they're coming from and why, like I said, where does this belief come from? And let's get into our differences and have these really uncomfortable conversations so that we can get on the same page. I am a big believer of Brene Brown's, clear as kind. So that means like sometimes you're having some really hard conversations so that we can understand where each other are at so that we can move through it and not just, try and move around it. Because, like there's no work environment that is a great work environment when there's this big elephant up in the room that you're just avoiding. That is not what I'm wanting to help create. And in fact, doing the opposite of let's be bold, let's have the conversations, let's, call a spade and put it on the table and then go from there.
How do you think women should address that when
Mm.
they're the only woman or the first woman in an environment, in a room full of men, and they're by themselves? I mean, I can come up with all types of things, but unless we do it collectively as women to help
Mhm.
the next woman that's coming behind us or sitting next to us, how do we as women do it?
Yeah. I would say we need to create community and be supportive of each other.
Come on.
That that I feel like sometimes, or like in my leadership journey, I didn't necessarily get to see like the true honest version of some of the female leaders that came before me because that wasn't really, what leaders did. They didn't show their cards. They didn't show like their vulnerable side of themselves. But I think that's what's needed for people to go, "Oh, okay, I'm not alone in the way I think here. I'm not alone thinking that I'm like incredibly different than the other people at this table, or that maybe I shouldn't be here." Or like do I have, but creating community is to me where that starts to change because you get to know that you're not alone. You get to have these conversations with other people and going, okay, and let's share some ideas of what you're doing and then you can feed off each other and really create that courage to have the conversations and rewrite that expectation book.
Yeah, that these open conversations that allow us to know that you're not alone, that I see you, I
Hmm.
get you, that we're in this together, and we're able to build a different table and allow other people to sit at it with us, where we don't have to exclude anyone, where we're
Hmm.
all inclusive, or we can make the table that they're sitting at longer and be in community, not just as with women, but I think with men also at some point.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Building that muscle that allows us to be able to sit at the table, even when it's just us, and then to bring other women and let them know that it's okay is key.
Hmm. No, yeah, absolutely. Because one of the terms that I hate is executive presence. Yeah, we might have talked about this before, Samantha. Because that executive presence, again, like choose to live. And if you don't have all of these things, then you don't have the presence that we need, which is often, authoritative decision maker, all of these typical leadership traits. But maybe executive presence is not that. And again, how the script on that and what that is, because I have worked with many leaders of, I'm at this kind of crossroads where I need to start to fit into this mold if I want to have the next promotion, if I want to get to the senior leadership table, if I want to be in the C-suite. And how do we change that? How do we change the idea? Like, of course, you need to be able to lean into like company culture and what the expectations are of you in a role. But how do you do that in a way that's still aligned with yourself and that it doesn't feel yucky
Mm.
showing up in this version of you that you need to be successful.
I think we're able to stand in integrity with ourselves on that journey to leadership when we actually know who we are. We know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what we want to do, and we're able to articulate it to the point where it's understood what our values are in any
Yes.
system, not just in their workforce or in their work environment. That
Mm.
they already know that when we walk in understanding your SOPs. We get it, the rules and regulations. I'm all for rules and regulations. I love them, to be honest. But within those rules and regulations, there comes a standard and there comes integrity with
Mm-hmm.
self that can
Mm-hmm.
spill over and still apply them and use them for the company's good without losing ourselves, because all these names of places and names of position were made by men. It's because they needed that title to feel authoritative over the
Mm.
rest of the world so that everyone knows who they are. And they can keep titles, because honestly, I like them sometimes. I'm not even going to lie to you.
Yeah.
But I am not the title. I am Samantha. I am the human that gets to stand
Mm.
in it regardless of everything else. I think that's when the shift comes and the unlearning happens, when we become true to ourselves and not just care for ourselves, but to actually love ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And that really was like what changed everything for me, I would say, because I mentioned before, I just operated on autopilot. I did exactly what was expected of me, and I didn't question it, and I did a really good job. And then I started working with an executive coach, and I started looking inward a bit more and went, oh, this is so interesting. Like, imagine if I thought about like, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be in this room? How do I want to show up? Versus, really starting to challenge those norms. What are my values? How do they align with the work that I'm doing? And that's really, again, that what started me on this path of executive coaching myself. Because I just thought, imagine if people could get the understanding of themselves that I finally got in, like, how, I don't know, my late 30s
Mhm.
earlier on, so that they didn't have this tension for so long in their careers, and they could find that alignment and contentment in all aspects of their life. There's an ability to create this environment for yourself that you fit and you feel like you fit.
Yeah. And guess what? We get to change it too. We get to
Yeah.
change it as women. And I think you and I are doing that. We're changing it. You've changed
Yeah.
it. And now you're bringing what you've learned and you teaching other women to do that while they're
Mm,
still there.
yeah. It feels like a privilege. Absolutely.
Well, we're almost at time, and this has been such an
Mm-hmm.
amazing, amazing conversation. But I have my question that I ask all my guests:
Mm,
what does it mean to be rooted in your confidence?
that's a lovely question. For me, I think it is then that means that you are offering your true self. You're not masking, you're not armoring. You know who you are, and that is the gift that you get to offer the world.
I love that.
Mm,
That gift
mm,
that you get to offer the world. So that means, look, that's a gift that we give the world. It's
yeah,
just not automatic. So it's a privilege.
right. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So tell my guests what you're doing, where they can find you.
Yeah.
It's all going to be in the show notes, but I want you to tell them so they can hear it from you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Samantha. So I am the owner and founder of Maven Executive Coaching. So that's where I get to do my leadership development and coaching with individuals and helping them unlock some of the things that is keeping them stuck and maybe helping or getting them or keeping them playing small. But I'm also excited to be able to start doing some team coaching to be able to really change the cultures of teams and not just individuals. And because I think that is really what the world needs, and what the corporate world in particular needs, is to really start to understand each other and create relational leadership.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, you can. I'm mostly hanging out on LinkedIn at Kirsten Dubreuil, but I do have an Instagram account too that is called Choose Courage Maven. I'd love to have a conversation and see where our worlds might collide.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Samantha. Thanks for creating the space for the conversation.
You're welcome. So, what does it mean for you to be rooted in your confidence? Kirsten, thank you for the conversation, for your honesty, your leadership, and for choosing to bring men into the work so women are not carrying it alone anymore. I truly appreciate you being here. To everyone listening, if today's conversation hit you in a way that makes you check the show, make sure you check the show notes. You'll
Hmm.
find all of Kirsten's information there so that you can stay connected and learn more about her work. And if you're a woman in a male dominated industry, in trades, who knows, she wants more confidence, stronger communication, and real tools to stop shrinking. Like this episode, share it with a woman who needs this reminder, and don't forget to follow Rooted in Your Confidence so that you won't miss the upcoming episode.